The day my daughter showed me a message that said, "I know where you are," everything changed. Because I had already seen the signs, I just didn't want to believe that the man living in my house was the one behind it. Chapter 1. The Locked Door. I didn't notice the sound at first. It was too small, too ordinary, the kind of noise a house makes when it settles into itself. But something about it lingered. A soft click from upstairs, barely louder than a breath, just enough to pull my attention away from the spreadsheet glowing on my laptop. I looked up. The house was quiet in that late evening way, when the air conditioning hummed low and the last light of Texas sunset stretched thin across the hardwood floors. I had been sitting at the dining table, finishing up a compliance report for ClearPath Analytics, trying to meet a deadline that had already slipped once this week. Numbers, timestamps, audit trails, things that made sense, things that followed rules. The click didn't. I pushed my chair back slowly, listening. Nothing else followed. No footsteps, no voices, just that same stillness settling back into place. Then I heard it again in my head, replaying itself. A lock. I frowned, standing up. My eyes drifted toward the staircase. Iris never locked her door. Not when she was 8, not when she turned 13, not even last week when she had friends over and wanted privacy. She just didn't. I took a step toward the stairs, then stopped. Maybe I was reading into it. Maybe it wasn't what I thought it was. Houses make noises, doors shift, old hinges catch. There were a dozen reasonable explanations, and I had spent most of my adult life trusting reasonable explanations. Still, something didn't sit right. I turned back toward the kitchen instead, drawn by the sound of low voices. Caleb and Evan were talking, their words blending into that familiar rhythm of casual conversation, the kind that didn't demand attention. I walked in just as Evan reached out, his hand landing lightly on Iris's shoulder. She flinched. It wasn't dramatic, not loud, not obvious enough to draw attention if you weren't looking for it. But I was looking. Her entire body tightened for a split second, shoulders lifting, neck stiffening, like a reflex she couldn't control. Then she stilled, forcing herself back into place, her eyes dropping to the floor. Evan didn't seem to notice. He smiled, easy and relaxed, the same way he always did. He had that kind of face. Open, approachable, the kind of man people trusted without thinking about it. "Hey, kiddo, how's school going?" he said. Iris didn't answer. She moved past him, quietly, taking her seat at the table. Her movements were careful, measured, like she was trying not to take up too much space, like she was trying not to be seen. Caleb glanced at Iris, his expression tightening slightly. "That's rude," he said. "Your uncle asked you a question." Iris picked up her fork, didn't look up. "Fine," she murmured. I stood in the doorway, watching. This wasn't attitude. I had seen attitude. This wasn't eye-rolling or sarcasm or slammed doors. This was something else entirely. Something quieter. Something heavier. Evan laughed softly, brushing it off. "Teenagers," he said, shaking his head. "It's all good." He moved to the counter, grabbing a glass, pouring himself water like he had done it 100 times before, like he lived here. And maybe, in a way, he did. It had started slowly after his divorce in 2021, a visit here and there, coffee in the mornings, dinner once a week, then twice. Then he just started showing up. Caleb never questioned it. "He needs support," he had said the first time I brought it up. "He's family." Family. That word had a way of ending conversations before they started. We ate dinner in that same strained quiet. Evan talked, Caleb responded, Iris stayed silent. I watched everything, every movement, every glance, every absence of one. Later that night, I stood outside Iris's door. The hallway light was dim, casting soft shadows across the walls. I could hear faint movement inside, the rustle of fabric maybe, or just my imagination filling in the gaps. I reached out and tried the handle. Locked. I knocked gently. "Iris?" A pause. Too long. "Yeah," she said finally. Her voice was flat, controlled. "I'm okay, Mom." I leaned closer to the door, listening. "Are you sure?" Another pause. "Yeah, night." That was it. No opening, no follow-up, just a wall where there had never been one before. I stood there for a second longer, my hand still resting on the door, feeling the solid resistance beneath my fingers. Then I stepped back. "You're overthinking," I told myself. "She's 15, she wants space, that's normal." But something inside me pushed back. It didn't feel normal. The next morning, I woke up to an empty kitchen. Iris had already left for school. Her backpack was gone. Her shoes were gone. The cereal box sat unopened on the counter. She never skipped breakfast. Not completely. Even when she was running late, she grabbed something. Today, nothing. I poured myself coffee, the smell sharp and familiar, grounding in a way I needed more than I wanted to admit. Evan was already there. He stood by the sink, scrolling through his phone, like he had every right to be in my kitchen at 7 in the morning. He glanced up when I walked in, offering a small smile. "Morning." "Morning," I said, keeping my voice even. "Where's Iris?" "Left early," he said. "Didn't even say bye. Guess she's got a lot going on." He said it casually, too casually. I nodded, taking a sip of coffee, letting the silence stretch just a little longer than comfortable. Then Caleb walked in, still half asleep, rubbing the back of his neck. "She's gone already?" he said, glancing around. "That's new." "Yeah," I replied. No one said anything else, but I felt it, that same quiet shift under the surface, like something had moved out of place and hadn't settled back yet. Over the next few days, I started noticing things I hadn't before. Iris kept her phone with her constantly, not just nearby, in her hand, in her pocket, even when she went to the bathroom. Her laptop stayed closed, always, even when she had homework. At night, I heard her get up more than once, soft footsteps crossing her room, the faint sound of the window latch. One evening, I walked past her door and saw the light flicker under the frame. I paused, then knocked. "Iris?" No answer. I pushed the door open slightly. She was standing by the window, her hand still on the curtain, pulling it shut a little too quickly when she saw me. "Hey," I said gently. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," she replied, too fast. "Just checking something." "What?" "Nothing." She moved away from the window, sitting down on her bed, her posture stiff, guarded. I watched her for a moment, trying to read something in her expression, anything, but she had already pulled the mask back on. "Okay," I said finally. "Let me know if you need anything." She nodded. I closed the door. That night, I didn't sleep well. The next morning, after Iris left, I stood in the hallway for a long time, staring at her closed door. Then I walked in. Her room was neat, too neat, like she had started controlling everything she could, down to the smallest detail. Her laptop sat on her desk, closed. I hesitated. Then I opened it. The screen lit up slowly, the fan kicking in almost immediately. The surface was warm under my fingers. Too warm. I waited as it loaded, my eyes scanning the desktop. Nothing obvious at first. Then I noticed it. A process running in the background, something unfamiliar, no clear name, no icon I recognized. I clicked on it. The system lagged for a second, like it didn't want to respond. Then it did. I stared at the screen, my pulse starting to pick up. I didn't need to understand every line of code to know something was wrong. I worked in data compliance. I spent my days tracking access, identifying anomalies, flagging irregular behavior. Patterns mattered, and this didn't fit any pattern that belonged on a 15-year-old girl's laptop. I closed the window slowly, shut the laptop, stood there, my hand still resting on the edge of the desk. The house was quiet again, too quiet. And for the first time, the thought didn't come as a question. It came as a certainty. Iris wasn't locking her door because she was afraid of the world outside. She was locking it because she was afraid of someone inside this house. And I was starting to understand that I might have been the last person to see it. If this story touched you, please subscribe and let someone out there feel less alone. Thank you. Chapter 2. He's family. I tried to push the thought away, but it didn't leave. It followed me through the rest of the morning, sat beside me while I drove to work, lingered in the quiet spaces between emails and numbers and compliance flags. By the time I logged into ClearPath Analytics, I had already checked my phone twice to make sure Iris had made it to school. She had. A simple message, one word, "I'm here." I stared at it longer than I should have, like there might be something hidden between the letters if I looked hard enough. There wasn't. The office was colder than usual, or maybe it was just me. Rows of desks, low conversations, the hum of monitors and coffee machines. Everything felt normal. Too normal. I opened my audit file and tried to focus. Transaction logs, access timestamps, user permissions, things that behaved predictably, things that made sense. My screen blurred. "You okay?" Tessa asked from the desk across from mine. I looked up, forcing a small smile. "Yeah, I just didn't sleep great." She nodded, turning back to her screen, but not before giving me that look, the one people give when they think you're not telling the whole truth but don't want to push. A few minutes passed before she spoke again. "You've been kind of off this week. Everything good at home?" I hesitated. It would have been easy to say yes, easier to shut it down before it turned into something real. Instead, I said, "I think so." She leaned back slightly, studying me. "You think so?" I let out a quiet breath. It's probably nothing, just Iris has been acting weird, and my brother-in-law's been around a lot lately. Tessa raised an eyebrow. "The one who just got divorced?" "Yeah." She nodded slowly. "That can be messy. People don't always land clean after something like that." I almost said something else, almost told her about the door, the laptop, the way Iris flinched. But the words didn't come out. "You're probably just dealing with normal teenage stuff," she said. "They get distant, secretive. It's a phase." I nodded. That made sense. It fit into a category, a box I could label and close. And yet, the feeling didn't change. My manager called me into his office around noon. He didn't look up right away when I walked in, just kept scrolling through something on his screen. "Close the door, Althea." I did. He leaned back, finally meeting my eyes. "You missed a flag in yesterday's audit." My stomach dropped slightly. "Which one?" He turned his monitor toward me, pointing. "This access log here, it should have been escalated." I leaned in, scanning the data. He was right. I don't usually miss things like that. "I know," he said, his tone softer now. "That's why I'm bringing it up. You've been slipping a little this week." I swallowed. "I'll fix it." "I know you will. Just make sure you're present, okay?" I nodded. Present. That was the problem. Part of me wasn't here. It was at home, in that hallway, standing outside a locked door. I went back to my desk and worked through the rest of the afternoon, correcting mistakes, double-checking everything, trying to anchor myself in something solid. By the time I got home, the sun was already low, casting long shadows across the driveway. Evan's car was there. Of course it was. I sat in my own car for a moment, my hand still on the steering wheel, watching the front door like it might tell me something if I waited long enough. Then I got out. The house smelled like takeout when I walked in. Something fried, something heavy. Evan stood at the counter, unpacking containers, moving around the kitchen like he had memorized the layout. "Hey," he said, glancing up. "Brought dinner." Caleb looked up from the living room. "You didn't have to do that, man." "It's nothing," Evan replied. "Figured it'd help." Help. That word again. I set my bag down slowly. "Where's Iris?" "Upstairs," Caleb said, "doing homework." I nodded, my eyes briefly flicking toward the staircase. Evan followed my gaze for just a second. Then he looked back at the containers, like it didn't matter. We ate together again. Same table, same chairs, same quiet tension humming just beneath the surface. Evan talked about something from his freelance work, a client issue, a software bug. Caleb listened, engaged, asking questions. Iris sat across from me, barely touching her food. At one point, Evan leaned back slightly, stretching his arms behind his head. "So, Iris," he said casually, You still getting out at 3:20 on Wednesdays? I froze. Iris didn't respond. Caleb looked up. What? Evan shrugged lightly. I drove by the school earlier this week, saw kids coming out around then. Iris's hand tightened around her fork. I felt it before I fully understood it. That shift in the room, that tiny crack in something that had been holding steady. You went by the school? I asked, keeping my voice even. Yeah, he said, not looking at me. Had a job nearby. Just noticed. I nodded slowly. It sounded reasonable. It could have been reasonable. Then he added, still casual, still light, she's got that robotics thing after school too, right? On Thursdays? Iris stopped, moving completely. Caleb smiled slightly. Yeah, she does. You remembered that. Evan shrugged. You mentioned it. I hadn't. Not to him. I looked at Iris. She was staring down at her plate, her face pale, her body rigid. I felt something tighten in my chest. Dinner ended quickly after that. Iris excused herself, heading upstairs without finishing her food. Caleb frowned slightly. She's been like that all week. I didn't respond. Evan stood up, grabbing the empty containers. I'll take care of this. Of course he would. I watched him move around the kitchen, his back to me now, his movements smooth, practiced. Too practiced. Later that night, I found Caleb in the living room, scrolling through something on his phone. We need to talk, I said. He glanced up. About what? I sat down across from him. About Iris. He sighed, already bracing himself. What about her? She's not okay, Caleb. He leaned back, rubbing his forehead. She's a teenager, Althea. They get weird. They shut down. It's normal. This isn't normal. He looked at me, his expression shifting slightly. You're reading into things. I felt my frustration rise. She flinched when Evan touched her. He frowned. I didn't see that. Because you weren't looking. He exhaled, shaking his head. You're connecting dots that aren't there. And you're ignoring the ones that are. The words hung between us. He sat up straighter now, his tone sharper. Evan is my brother. I know. He's been through a lot. I know. So maybe instead of assuming the worst, you give him the benefit of the doubt. I stared at him. I am not assuming anything. I'm paying attention. To what? He asked, his voice rising slightly. A kid being moody? A guy trying to help? Help. That word again. I stood up, suddenly unable to sit there anymore. This isn't about helping. Then what is it about? I didn't have a clean answer, not one I could prove, not one that would hold up under logic. It's about something being wrong, I said quietly, and you not wanting to see it. He shook his head. You're overreacting. The word landed harder than it should have. Overreacting. I turned away, walking toward the stairs. I'm going to check on Iris. He didn't stop me. Upstairs, I paused outside her door. No sound. I knocked. Iris? A pause. Yeah? Can I come in? Another pause. Then, okay. I opened the door slowly. She was sitting on her bed, her laptop closed beside her, her phone in her hands. Her eyes flicked up to mine, then back down. You okay? I asked, stepping inside. She nodded. Yeah. You've been quiet lately. I'm just tired. I sat down on the edge of her desk chair, watching her. Something's bothering you. She shook her head. No. I waited. She didn't say anything else. I looked at the laptop beside her. Hey, I said gently, is your computer acting weird? Her grip on her phone tightened. Why? Just wondering. It's fine, she said quickly. Too quickly. I nodded slowly. Okay. Silence filled the room again. I stood up after a moment. If anything's wrong, you can tell me. You know that, right? She nodded again. Yeah. I walked to the door, then stopped, turning back. Did Evan say anything to you today? Her head snapped up. No. Too fast again. I held her gaze for a second longer. Then I nodded. Okay. I stepped out, closing the door behind me. And as I stood in the hallway, that same feeling settled deeper into my bones. It wasn't vague anymore. It wasn't a question. It was something solid, something forming shape. Evan wasn't just around more. He was paying attention, too much attention. And whatever he was paying attention to, Iris knew it.
If this story touched you, please subscribe and let someone out there feel less alone. Thank you. Chapter 3. The Things He Shouldn't Know. It showed in everything she did after that. Not all at once, not in a way that could be easily pointed to and explained, but once I started seeing it, I couldn't stop. Iris stopped using her laptop entirely. It stayed closed on her desk, untouched, even when she had assignments due. When I asked, she said she preferred doing work on her phone now. That didn't make sense. No 15-year-old chooses to write essays on a phone. She started deleting messages. I noticed it one evening when her phone lit up on the counter while she was in the bathroom. A notification popped up, then disappeared almost instantly. When she came back, she checked her phone, and within seconds, whatever had been there was gone. She was cleaning something or hiding something, and she was always watching. Not openly, not in a way that would draw attention, but her eyes moved more now. Quick glances, small shifts. She checked doorways, windows, reflections in the microwave glass, like she expected someone to be there. One night, I walked past her room and saw the light on. I paused, then gently pushed the door open. She was standing by the window again. This time, I saw it clearly. Her hand snapped to the curtain the second a pair of headlights passed by the house. She pulled it shut too fast, her breathing shallow, shoulders tight. I stepped inside. "Iris?" She turned quickly, her face already trying to reset. "What? Why did you close the curtain like that?" She hesitated. "I didn't." I let the silence stretch. "I saw you." She looked away. "It's just, the light was bothering me." The excuse came too fast, too thin. I nodded slowly, not pushing further. "Not yet." "Okay." But it wasn't okay. The next morning, my phone buzzed while I was at my desk. An unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me open the message. "Hey, is this Iris's mom?" I frowned, typing back. "Yes, who is this?" "Noah, I'm in her history class." My stomach tightened slightly. "Is everything okay?" There was a pause before the next message came through. I don't know if this is weird, but I thought I should say something. I leaned forward in my chair, my attention snapping fully into place. "Go ahead." Another pause. "There's been this guy at school sometimes, like near the parking lot. Not every day, but enough that people notice." My fingers hovered over the keyboard. "What do you mean?" "He doesn't talk to anyone, just stands there or sits in his car. Watches." "Watches who?" I waited. Then the message came. I think Iris noticed him too. She always leaves really fast now. A cold wave moved through me. "Do you know what he looks like?" "Dark hair, maybe mid-30s. I don't know. He doesn't come close enough." I stared at the screen. "Thank you for telling me." "Yeah, sorry if it's nothing." It wasn't nothing. I sat back in my chair, the office noise fading into the background again. My heart was beating faster now, a steady rhythm that didn't match the calm environment around me. This wasn't just in my house anymore. It was outside. That afternoon, I left work early. I didn't tell Caleb. I didn't explain anything. I just packed up my things, told my manager I wasn't feeling well, and drove straight to Westlake High. The parking lot was already filling up when I got there. Students clustered in small groups, backpacks slung over shoulders, voices overlapping in that familiar after-school chaos. I parked across the street, far enough to watch without being obvious. I scanned the area slowly. Cars, parents, students, nothing. I told myself maybe Noah was mistaken. Maybe I was letting my mind connect dots that didn't belong together. Then I saw it. A car parked slightly off to the side, not in the main pickup area. Engine off,
windows tinted just enough to obscure the inside. I leaned forward, squinting slightly. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a figure shifted in the driver's seat. I couldn't see his face, just movement. My pulse spiked. Students started walking out in waves. I searched for Iris, my eyes moving faster now, more frantic. Then I saw her. She walked quickly, her head down, her steps tight and controlled. Not relaxed, not casual. She didn't look around. She just moved, straight toward the sidewalk, away from the parking lot, away from that car. I glanced back at it. Still there, still watching. Then a group of students passed in front of my view, blocking it for just a second. When they cleared, the car was gone, like it had never been there. I sat frozen for a moment, my hands gripping the steering wheel. Then I saw Iris approaching. I got out of the car, forcing my expression into something normal. "Hey," I called out. She looked up, surprise flashing across her face. "Mom, what are you doing here? Thought I'd pick you up today."
She nodded slowly, her eyes flicking past me, scanning the street behind. "You didn't have to. I wanted to." She got into the passenger seat quickly, closing the door a little too fast. I got back in, starting the engine. We didn't speak for a few seconds. Then I asked quietly, "Do you know a man who's been around the parking lot?" Her body went completely still. "No." Too fast. I glanced at her. "Iris?" "I said no." Her voice was sharper now, defensive. I didn't push. Not yet. We drove home in silence. That night, I couldn't ignore it anymore. After Iris went upstairs, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, pulling up the home network logs. I wasn't guessing anymore. I was checking. Device history, access points, connection times. At first, everything looked normal. Then I saw it. A device I didn't recognize, connected briefly, late at night, multiple times over the past week. No name, no clear identifier, just a string of numbers. My chest tightened. I checked the timestamps. Every connection lined up with nights Evan had been in the house. I stared at the screen, my mind racing through possibilities, trying to find a version of this that made sense. There wasn't one. I closed the laptop slowly, and for the first time, the thought wasn't just forming, it was solid. He was inside our network. I didn't wait this time. Caleb was in the living room again, scrolling through his phone. "We need to talk." He looked up, already annoyed. "What now?" I walked in, my voice steady but tight. "There's a device connecting to our network that doesn't belong to us." He frowned. So it shows up every time Evan is here." His expression hardened. "You're not serious." I checked the logs. "And you're assuming it's him." "I'm not assuming. I'm telling you the pattern." He stood up now, his frustration rising. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're taking normal things and turning them into something else. This is not normal, Caleb. It's a device on a network. That's it. And Iris is terrified." He shook his head. "She's not terrified. She's being a teenager. She flinches when he touches her." "I didn't see that. Because you're not looking." The words came out sharper this time. His jaw tightened. "You're trying to turn my brother into a criminal. I'm trying to protect our daughter." Silence. Heavy. Thick. Then he said it. "You're overreacting again." Again. The word hit harder this time. I stared at him for a second longer, then turned away. I couldn't do this right now. Not when everything in me was telling me I was right. I went upstairs. Iris's door was closed. I knocked. "Iris?" No answer. "Iris?" A pause. Then footsteps. The door opened just enough for her to look out. "What?" "Can I come in?" She hesitated, then opened the door.
I stepped inside, closing it behind me. She stood near her bed, her phone in her hand again. "I need you to be honest with me," I said quietly. "I am." "No, you're not." Her eyes flicked away. "Did someone message you today?" Her grip tightened. "No." "Iris?" Silence. Then, slowly, she turned her phone around. The screen lit up. A message. Unknown number. "I know where you are." My stomach dropped. I looked up at her. "When did you get this?" "After school." "Have there been others?" She nodded. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her voice cracked slightly. "Because you wouldn't believe me." The words landed like a blow. I reached for her, but she stepped back instinctively. That hurt more than anything else. "I believe you. I do now." Her breathing was uneven, her eyes wide, on the edge of something breaking. "I don't want him here," she whispered. And for the first time, I didn't have to say his name. I already knew who she meant.
If this story touched you, please subscribe and let someone out there feel less alone. Thank you.
Chapter 4. Proof. Everything after that moved faster, but also clearer, like something inside me had finally locked into place. There was no more space for doubt. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I stayed in Iris's room until she fell asleep, sitting in the chair near her desk, watching the soft rise and fall of her breathing like it was the only thing grounding me. Every small sound made me look up. Every shift of light outside made my chest tighten. When I finally went downstairs, the house felt different. Not quiet anymore. Not safe. Just still. I started immediately. I brought my laptop to the kitchen table, pulled Iris's phone from where she had left it charging, and began backing everything up. Messages, call logs, photos, app data. Anything that could disappear if someone wanted it to. My hands were steady now. This part, I understood. At ClearPath, I spent my days tracing access, following patterns, documenting irregularities. I knew how people hid things. I knew how systems kept records even when users tried to erase them. Whoever had sent those messages thought they were invisible. They weren't. I connected Iris's phone, watching the data transfer slowly across the screen, file by file, thread by thread. There were more messages. Not many, just enough. Short, controlled, watching, close, don't tell. Each one spaced out just far enough to avoid pattern detection, but the pattern was there. It always was. I moved to her laptop next. The same one Evan had offered to fix, the same one I had already seen behaving wrong. I powered it on, bypassing the usual login flow, digging deeper this time. System processes, background services, hidden permissions. And then I found it. A remote access tool. Not something obvious, not something a parent would notice just clicking through settings. It was buried, disguised under a generic name, running quietly in the background. I stared at it for a long second. Then I opened the installation log. My breath caught. The timestamp. The exact afternoon Evan had sat at this table, smiling, telling Iris he could fix her slow computer. I felt something cold settle into my chest. Then I kept going, because something else didn't line up. There were access logs that predated that installation, short connections, brief pings, unknown origin, before the laptop had ever been fixed, before he had any reason to touch it. I leaned back slightly, my mind racing through it again. He didn't start when he had access. He had already been trying to get it. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't curiosity. It was intention. I closed the laptop slowly, my fingers lingering on the edge. Then I reached for my phone. I stared at the contact list for a long moment before scrolling. Darren Pike. I had never actually needed a lawyer before. Not like this. His number had come from a colleague months ago, someone who mentioned him in passing during a conversation about digital privacy cases. I hesitated. What if I was wrong? What if this was all still somehow explainable? What if I was about to tear my family apart over something I couldn't fully prove? My thumb hovered over the call button. Then I thought of Iris, the way she flinched, the way she locked her door, the way she said she didn't want him here. I pressed call. He answered on the third ring. "This is Darren." "Hi, my name is Althea Voss. I was referred to you. I think my daughter is being monitored." There was a brief pause on the line. "Tell me what you have." I explained everything. The messages, the laptop, the logs, the behavior. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, his voice was calm, measured. "First, don't confront anyone yet." My grip tightened on the phone. "Okay. Document everything. Save copies. Multiple locations. If this is what it sounds like, you need a clean chain of evidence." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "And then, you should consider filing for a protective order, but we'll need enough to support it." My chest tightened. "Do I have enough?" "Not yet," he said, "but you're close." Close. The words sat heavy. I ended the call and just sat there for a moment, staring at nothing. Then I kept going. I pulled the logs from the router again, cross-referencing timestamps with Evan's visits. The overlap was too consistent to ignore. I saved everything.
External drive, cloud backup, email drafts. No room for mistakes. By mid-morning, I was already on my way to the police station. The building felt colder than I expected. Bright lights, neutral walls, the steady movement of people who had seen too much to react quickly to anything anymore. Officer Nolan Briggs met me at the front desk. Mid-40s, steady eyes, the kind of presence that didn't give anything away too soon. "What can I help you with?" he asked. I explained. Again. This time, shorter, cleaner, just the facts. He listened, nodding occasionally, but his expression stayed neutral. "Do you have the messages?" I handed him my phone. He scrolled through them slowly. "And the device logs?" I pulled out my laptop, showing him the data. He leaned in slightly, more focused now. "This could be something," he said, "but we'll need to verify." I felt the frustration rise. My daughter is getting messages from someone who knows where she is. "I understand," he replied calmly, "but we have to follow process." Process. The word felt like a wall. "We can document this," he continued. "If you get anything more concrete, especially direct contact or confirmed identity, we can escalate." I nodded, even though it wasn't enough. Not yet. As I turned to leave, he added, "Keep everything, don't delete anything, and don't alert the person you suspect." I didn't respond, because that part was already too late. When I got back home, my phone rang before I even made it inside. Marjorie. I stared at the screen for a second before answering. "Hi," I said. "What is going on, Althea?" she snapped immediately. I closed my eyes briefly. "What do you mean?" "Evan just called me. He said you've been acting strange." Of course he did. I took a slow breath. "I'm protecting my daughter." "From what?" she demanded. "From her own family?" The word family landed heavier now than it had before. "From someone who shouldn't be around her." There was a sharp pause. "You're accusing him," she said, her voice dropping. "I'm observing behavior that isn't normal. You're tearing this family apart over nothing." Nothing? I gripped the phone tighter. "You don't see what I see." "No," she said coldly. "I see a woman who's decided she knows better than everyone else." The line went quiet. Then she added, "Caleb doesn't deserve this." The call ended. I stood there for a long moment, the silence pressing in again. Then I walked inside. Caleb was already there. He looked up when I entered, his expression tight. "Did you go to the police?" I stopped. "How do you know?" "Evan told me." Of course he did. I set my bag down slowly. "Yes." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing slightly. "You went to the police about my brother." "I went because our daughter is being threatened. You don't know that it's him." I didn't answer, because now I did. He looked at me, searching for something in my face. "You're crossing a line, Alfia." I met his gaze. So is he. The silence that followed was different this time. Not confused, not uncertain, just broken. I walked past him, heading upstairs. Iris's door was slightly open. I stepped inside quietly. Her laptop sat on the desk again. Open this time. My chest tightened. I moved closer. Something on the screen caught my eye. A folder. No label, no name. Just there. I hesitated for a second. Then I clicked it open. And everything inside me went still. Photos. Dozens of them. Iris walking out of school. Iris standing at the bus stop. Iris in our driveway. Iris through the front window. Angles that shouldn't exist unless someone was watching. Following. Waiting. My hand trembled slightly on the mouse. I checked the timestamps. Some of them were weeks old, before the laptop had ever been touched, before Evan had ever offered to fix anything. My breath came slow now, controlled, because if I let it go any faster, I knew what came next. This hadn't started in my house. It hadn't started with the laptop. It had already been happening, for longer than I had seen. And I was right about one thing. I wasn't early. I was late.
If this story touched you, please subscribe and let someone out there feel less alone. Thank you. Chapter 5. The Moment He Saw. The realization didn't leave me. It pressed harder, sharper, like something that had been waiting for me to catch up. I didn't confront anyone that night. I didn't say a word to Caleb, didn't call Evan, didn't tell Iris what I had found. I just watched and waited. The next day stretched too long, every hour dragging, every minute feeling like I was already behind something I couldn't see. I checked my phone more than I worked. I watched the time. 3:15, 3:20, 3:25. Iris should have been home by then. She always texted if she stayed late. She didn't. At 3:28, I called her. No answer. At 3:30, I called again, straight to voicemail. My chest tightened. I grabbed my keys before I even realized I was moving. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. My hands froze for half a second before I opened it. Don't get smart. The words hit harder than anything before. Short, direct, not watching anymore. Warning. I didn't think. I ran. The drive to the school felt wrong, too slow. Every red light felt intentional, like something was trying to hold me back. I kept calling. No answer. When I pulled into the parking lot, it was already thinning out. Most of the students were gone. The space felt too open, too exposed. I stepped out of the car, scanning everything at once. Cars, empty spaces, shadows stretching across the pavement. No Iris. My heart was pounding now, loud enough to drown everything else out. I moved faster, walking toward the far end of the lot, toward where students usually cut through to leave. Then I heard it. A sound, not loud, a quick shift, movement behind something. I turned and saw her. Iris was crouched low behind a row of parked cars, her body folded in on itself, like she was trying to disappear. I ran to her. "Iris!" She flinched when I reached her, her eyes wide, unfocused for a second before recognizing me. "Mom," her voice broke. I dropped down beside her. "It's okay, I'm here." She shook her head, her breathing uneven. "He was here." My stomach dropped. "Where?" She pointed weakly toward the other side of the lot. "I saw him. He was watching me again." Her hands were shaking. "I started walking and then I heard him, behind me." Her voice cracked. "I ran." I could see it in her face. Not imagined, not exaggerated. Experienced. Did he touch you? No. Did he say anything? She shook her head again. No, just followed. The word hung heavy. I pulled her closer instinctively, my eyes scanning the lot again, sharper now, searching for any movement, any sign. Nothing. Too empty, too quiet. Then she spoke again, quieter this time. I think he was closer this time. My chest tightened. Okay, we're leaving. Right now. I helped her up, keeping one hand firmly around her shoulder, guiding her toward my car. Every step felt exposed. Every shadow felt like it could move. We got inside quickly, doors locking with a sharp click. Iris curled into herself in the passenger seat, her hands gripping her hoodie sleeves. I started the engine. Then my phone rang. Caleb. I answered immediately. Where are you? I'm at the school, I said. I found her. There was a pause. Is she okay? She's scared. Another pause. I'm coming. I didn't argue. I didn't have the energy. We waited in the car. Minutes passed slowly. Iris didn't speak. I didn't push her. Then headlights pulled into the lot. Caleb's truck. He got out quickly, moving toward us faster than I had ever seen him move. I unlocked the door. He opened it without hesitation, dropping down slightly to Iris's level. Hey, he said softly. She didn't respond. He reached out carefully, slower this time, like he was afraid of doing something wrong. It's okay, he said. Nothing. Then she looked up at him, and everything changed. Her face. The fear wasn't hidden anymore. It wasn't controlled, wasn't held back behind quiet or silence. It was there, raw, unfiltered. He saw it, really saw it. And in that second, something in him broke. I'm sorry, he said. His voice was low, barely holding together. I'm so sorry. He reached for her again, and this time she didn't pull away. She leaned into him slightly, just enough. That was all it took. Not the messages, not the logs, not the photos. Her face. That was what made him believe. I stepped back slightly, watching them, feeling something shift in the air between us. The argument was over. The denial was gone. Now there was only one thing left. What do we do next? Sirens cut through the quiet a few minutes later. 2 police cars pulled into the lot, lights flashing against the empty pavement. Officer Nolan stepped out, his expression already more serious than the day before. What happened? He asked as he approached. I explained quickly. He nodded, scanning the area. Did you see him? He asked Iris. She shook her head. No, I just heard him. Nolan exchanged a glance with his partner. We'll take a look around. They moved off, checking the perimeter, moving between the rows of cars, their presence filling the space that had felt too empty just moments before. Caleb stood beside me now. I should have listened, he said quietly. I didn't respond, because there was nothing left to say about that. We watched as the officers circled the lot, their radios crackling softly. Then Nolan returned. Nothing, he said. If he was here, he's gone. Of course he was. That's what people like him did. They didn't stay, they didn't confront. They watched, they waited. And when things got close to exposure, they disappeared. I looked out across the parking lot again, my eyes tracing the same spaces, the same shadows, trying to see what I had missed before, trying to understand how long this had been happening without me knowing. Beside me, Iris leaned into Caleb slightly, her breathing finally starting to slow. He kept a hand on her shoulder, steady, present. Different now, not blind, not dismissive, aware. I turned my gaze away from the lot, because for the first time, I wasn't looking for him anymore. I was thinking about what came next, and how far this had already gone. Chapter 6. What was always there? We didn't go home right away. Officer Nolan told us to follow them to the station, and this time I didn't hesitate. There was no part of me left that thought we could handle this quietly, inside the walls of our house, pretending things would settle if we waited long enough. They wouldn't. The station felt different from the day before. Not colder, not indifferent, just sharper, more focused. Nolan led us into a small room, closing the door behind us. Iris stayed close to me, her hand gripping my sleeve, not letting go. He sat across from us, a notepad in front of him, his posture more direct now. "Start from the beginning," he said. So I did. Everything. The messages, the laptop, the photos, the car at the school, the way Iris had been acting, the way Evan had been there, always there. This time, I didn't soften anything. This time, I didn't leave space for doubt. Nolan listened, writing occasionally, his expression tightening in small ways that told me he understood more than he was saying out loud. When I finished, he nodded once. "This is enough for us to move forward," he said. Something in my chest loosened slightly. Not relief, but direction. "We'll need copies of everything you've collected," he continued. "Messages, logs, images. We'll get a digital forensic team involved." I nodded. "I have backups." "Good. Keep them. Don't delete anything. Don't confront him. Don't give him any indication that you know more than you did yesterday." I almost laughed at that. He already knew. People like Evan always knew when the line was getting close. "What about protecting her?" I asked, glancing at Iris. Nolan looked at her, then back at me. "We can help you file for a protective order. It won't solve everything immediately, but it creates legal distance, and if he violates it, we have grounds to act faster." Legal distance. It sounded thin compared to what we needed, but it was something. "I'll connect you with someone to get that started today," he added. I nodded. "Thank you." The conversation shifted after that into specifics: passwords, account security, device checks, every place Evan could have reached, every point of access he might still have. It felt overwhelming, but also necessary, like finally mapping something that had been invisible. When we left the station, the sky was already dark. Caleb drove us home. The silence in the car was different now. Not tense, not unresolved, just heavy. At one point, he spoke, his voice low. I should have seen it. I didn't respond right away, because I had asked myself the same question. "I should have listened to you," he added. I looked out the window, watching the streetlights pass. She was telling us without saying anything. We just didn't know how to hear it. He gripped the steering wheel tighter. I trusted him. I didn't answer that, because I had to. When we got home, the house felt unfamiliar. Not unsafe, but changed. Like once something breaks in a place, even if you fix it, you still remember where the crack was. Iris went straight upstairs, not even pausing in the kitchen. Caleb stood in the doorway for a moment, then pulled out his phone. "I'm calling my mom," he said. I watched him. He stepped outside. I didn't hear everything, just pieces. "No, it's not a misunderstanding. I saw her. No, you didn't see what I saw. I don't care what he told you. He's not coming here again. No, Mom, listen to me." His voice cracked slightly near the end, then silence. When he came back inside, he didn't look at me right away. "She knows," he said finally. "She still thinks we're overreacting." I nodded. Of course she does. He sat down heavily on the couch. "I told her we're done, with him, with all of it." That was the first real consequence. Not loud, not dramatic, but final. Over the next few days, things moved quickly. Darren filed the paperwork for the protective order. I signed forms I had never imagined needing. Dates, statements, evidence summaries. Nolan called twice with updates. They had started looking into Evan's digital footprint, his client history, his access patterns. "Has he contacted you?" Nolan asked. "No." "Good. That means we know we're watching." That should have been comforting. It wasn't. It just meant he was still out there, still thinking, still waiting. Then the first shift happened. Not from us, from outside. One of Evan's clients dropped him, then another. Tessa mentioned hearing something through a mutual contact, a vague conversation about boundary issues and someone being investigated. Nothing official, but enough. Reputation didn't need proof to start breaking. It just needed doubt. A week later, Nolan called again. "We found additional access attempts tied to his devices. Some of them go back further than what you initially reported." "Further? How far?" I asked. "Before he started coming to your house regularly." I closed my eyes for a second. That means he was already watching her. Yes. The word landed softly, but it changed everything. It meant this didn't start when we let him in. It meant he had been circling long before that, looking for a way in. And when the opportunity came, he didn't hesitate. That night, I sat across from the kitchen table again, the same place where this had started to come together. Iris was upstairs. Caleb was quiet in the living room. The house felt calmer, but not the same. I opened my laptop, pulling up the logs one more time, tracing the timestamps, the connections, the moments I had missed. It was all there, just not where I had been looking. I leaned back, staring at the screen, letting the realization settle fully this time. Danger doesn't always arrive with noise. It doesn't always force its way in. Sometimes it waits, it learns, it studies, and by the time you see it, it's already been there. Upstairs, I heard Iris's door close. Not lock, just close. I listened for another second. Then I turned off the light. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I needed to stand outside her door, because now she knew I was listening, and I knew what to listen for. There are things you can't undo, things you don't get back, time you didn't see what was right in front of you. But there are also moments where you finally do, where something shifts, where you stop explaining things away and start believing what you see. If your child ever starts to fear someone you trust, if the signs are quiet, small, easy to dismiss, would you believe them, or would you wait until it becomes something you can't ignore? Because by then, it might already be too late.